She said my mother was too dramatic to attend our wedding. I calmly said understood. What she didn't expect was that I'd invite everyone she tried to erase and cancel the wedding instead. When Emma and I got engaged, I thought I had everything figured out. She was beautiful, ambitious, and had this commanding presence that could light up any room. People described us as the perfect couple, and for a while, I believed it too. We had our differences. She was more controlling than I liked, and I often let her make decisions I didn't fully agree with, but I brushed it off as part of her personality. That's just Emma, I'd tell myself. Wedding planning magnified those traits. What should have been a joint celebration quickly became Emma's production. The flowers had to be flown in from Italy. The venue had to be booked on a holiday weekend. The photographer had to be the one she followed on Instagram. Whenever I suggested something simpler or more practical, she'd wave her hand dismissively and say, "Do you really want people to think we're cheap?" Still, I stayed quiet. I figured, if these details made her happy, I could live with them. But everything changed the night we reviewed the guest list. We were sitting at the dining table, papers and laptops scattered everywhere, when Emma suddenly froze, scrolling through the spreadsheet. She turned her phone toward me and, without hesitation, said the words that made my blood run cold. "Your mother can't come to our wedding. She's too dramatic." At first, I laughed awkwardly, thinking it was some kind of tasteless joke. "What?" I asked, waiting for her to smirk and take it back. But Emma didn't laugh. She didn't even look at me. She kept her eyes on the guest list, tapping her manicured nails against the screen. "I'm serious. Every time I've seen her, she's crying or talking too much. I don't want her ruining my day with her theatrics." My chest tightened. My mother is the reason I'm even alive, the reason I could go to college, the reason I became the man Emma supposedly fell in love with. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep food on the table. She missed meals so I could eat. She spent nights awake sewing clothes or clipping coupons. And yes, she cries because she feels everything deeply. But never, not once, did I see that as drama. "Emma," I said slowly, trying to contain the anger rising in me, "you're asking me to exclude the most important person in my life from my wedding." She sighed, finally looking at me like I was being unreasonable. "Not asking, telling. It's my wedding too, and I refuse to let her embarrass me. If she comes, she'll make everything about herself. I won't allow it." In that moment, something inside me shifted. I saw her clearly, maybe for the first time. This wasn't about flowers or photographers or even the wedding. This was about control, about her need to dictate everything, even the people who mattered most to me. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while Emma slept soundly beside me. My thoughts kept circling back to one truth. If I caved now, I'd spend the rest of my life compromising the people and values I cared about just to keep her satisfied. By morning, my decision was made. I didn't argue with her. I didn't shout. I simply picked up the phone, called our wedding planner, and gave very specific instructions about the guest list. If Emma thought she could erase my mother from my life's most important day, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. When I ended the call with the wedding planner, my hands were shaking. Not with fear. No, it was something else. A mixture of calm defiance and bittersweet resolve. For months, I had swallowed my discomfort, choosing peace over confrontation. But this time was different. This wasn't about table settings or music playlists. This was about my mother, the woman who sacrificed her life to give me one worth living. I made my instructions very clear. No changes to the list from Emma without my approval. And most importantly, my mother, my family, and the people who raised me are non-negotiable. The planner paused, hesitant. She had dealt with Emma enough to know the storm this might trigger. But when I reassured her with quiet determination, she agreed. "Understood," she said. That phone call was the first time in months I felt like myself again. Emma, however, noticed a shift. The next morning, she was scrolling through her phone, sipping coffee, when she asked casually, "Did you confirm the new guest list?" I looked at her, keeping my expression neutral. "Yeah, I took care of it." She smiled in satisfaction, assuming I had done exactly as she demanded. She leaned over to kiss me before heading out for a bridal dress fitting. That small display of affection almost broke me. It reminded me of the version of Emma I fell in love with, the woman I once thought was my partner. But now I knew better. The weeks leading up to the wedding became a strange balancing act. Emma was in full bride mode, stressing over napkin colors and the size of the dessert table, while I quietly coordinated with the planner. My mother had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. She was just grateful to be invited, already talking about what dress she might wear. She'll cry, I thought, but this time, her tears will be happy. At night, Emma would rant about her bridesmaids, her hairstylist, or her latest gripe with the florist. And I listened. I let her talk, nodding where appropriate, keeping my secret tightly sealed. Each time she spoke of her day, I reminded myself, a wedding is supposed to be about us, not just her. The breaking point came 2 weeks before the wedding. Emma was on the phone with her maid of honor, laughing about how peaceful the event would be without that emotional wreck of a mother-in-law. She didn't notice me standing in the hallway, listening. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. When she hung up, I walked into the room. Emma, do you really hate my mother that much? She blinked, caught off guard. Then she rolled her eyes, as if I was being dramatic. I don't hate her. I just know what she's like. She'll cry during the vows, probably tell some sob story to everyone at the reception, and honestly, it'll embarrass me. I want this day to be perfect, not filled with her theatrics. I stared at her, searching for even the slightest trace of compassion. There was none, just cold dismissal. Emma, I said quietly, a wedding isn't about perfection. It's about family, love, and starting a life together. If you can't accept that, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. Her face hardened instantly. Don't you dare threaten me with that. Do you have any idea how much money my parents are putting into this wedding? Do you know how stupid you'd look if you backed out now? That was it. The mask fully slipped. This wasn't about us. It was about appearances, control, and status. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just walked away, my decision cemented deeper than ever. The wedding day arrived like a thunderstorm, heavy with tension. Guests filled the venue, laughter and chatter echoing off the walls. Emma was radiant, I'll admit. She looked stunning in her gown, every detail she obsessed over shining in perfect harmony. To everyone else, it was the fairy tale she had promised. But only I knew the truth. As the ceremony began, Emma glanced toward the rows of chairs, her confident smile faltering when she spotted my mother sitting proudly in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My cousin sat nearby, grinning. My childhood best friend, whom Emma had once deemed too loud, was there too. Every person she had tried to erase from my life was seated exactly where they belonged. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. She looked at me, panic flashing across her face, but I didn't flinch. I held her gaze, calm and steady, as if to say, yes, this is happening. Deal with it. Throughout the ceremony, she forced a smile, but anyone watching closely could see the cracks. Her hand trembled in mine. Her laugh was a fraction too high-pitched. Every time my mother sniffled softly, Emma's jaw tightened. The Real explosion came at the reception. Dinner was served. Glasses clinked, and the room buzzed with warmth. My mother gave a short speech, her voice shaking with emotion as she thanked everyone for coming. She spoke of raising me alone, of the sacrifices she made, of how proud she was to see her son building a new life. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, except for Emma. When the applause died down, Emma leaned close to me, her whisper sharp as a blade. You went behind my back. I met her glare calmly. I stood up for my family. Her lips parted as if to argue, but before she could, the DJ announced our first dance. The crowd cheered, sweeping us onto the floor. From the outside, we looked perfect, newlyweds wrapped in a tender embrace. But inside, I could feel her fury radiating like fire. Later that night, while everyone laughed, danced, and celebrated, Emma pulled me aside. Her mask had finally dropped. I can't believe you humiliated me like that, she hissed. I told you what I wanted. You had no right. I looked at her, exhausted but resolute. Emma, this day was never just about you. And if you think excluding my mother was the price for your version of perfection, then you don't know me at all. For the first time, she had no comeback. She just stared at me, stunned, as if realizing she wasn't in control anymore. That night, as the guests drifted home and the venue emptied, I found my mother sitting quietly with a smile on her face. Thank you, she whispered, squeezing my hand. And in that moment, I knew, no matter what happened with Emma, I had made the right choice. Because love without respect, without family, without compassion, It isn't love at all. Update 1 that the wedding was over, the photographs printed, the thank you notes mailed. To everyone on the outside, it looked like a dream. People posted on social media about how beautiful the day was, how emotional the speeches had been, how stunning Emma looked. But inside our apartment, the silence was thick enough to choke on. Emma barely spoke to me for the first week after the wedding. She spent hours scrolling through her phone, talking in hushed voices to her friends, and typing long paragraphs into group chats. The only time she acknowledged me was when she made a passive-aggressive remark. "Your mother really milked that speech, didn't she?" she said one night while removing her makeup. I didn't respond. I had learned that silence was more effective than arguing. Another time she muttered, "Half the pictures are ruined," with her blotchy, crying face in the background. I simply kept reading my book. Every jab she threw at me bounced off the wall of my calmness, and I could tell it infuriated her even more. By the second week, Emma's passive hostility turned into open arguments. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone," she shouted one evening, slamming a cupboard door. "Do you have any idea how it felt to see her sitting there after I specifically told you she shouldn't come?" I looked at her steadily. "You don't get to erase my family because of your insecurities." "Insecurities?" she snapped. This was supposed to be my perfect day. There it was. She didn't even bother pretending anymore. It wasn't our day, it was hers. I almost laughed at the irony. She had gotten everything she wanted: lavish decor, an expensive dress, the venue of her dreams. But because my mother sat in a chair and cried tears of joy, she saw the entire day as ruined. Her resentment grew like poison. She began telling her friends selective versions of the story, painting herself as the victim of a controlling husband. I overheard her once on the phone saying, "He went behind my back, disrespected me, and made the wedding about his mother." Can you believe that? She conveniently left out the part where she tried to ban my family from attending. It didn't take long for those whispers to turn into subtle cold shoulders at social events. Some of her friends gave me tight, polite smiles, their eyes full of judgment. Others outright ignored me. That was fine. I wasn't interested in defending myself to people who only knew Emma's edited version of events. The breaking point came 3 weeks after the wedding. I came home late from work to find Emma sitting on the couch with her laptop open. Her eyes were red, but her voice was sharp when she spoke. "I talked to my parents," she began. "They agree that what you did was completely unacceptable. If you expect this marriage to work, you're going to have to apologize to me, to them, and maybe even to my bridesmaids who were humiliated too." I stared at her, incredulous. "Apologize? For inviting my mother to my own wedding? For undermining me?" she shot back. "For making me look like a fool?" I sat down across from her, my patience thin but my voice calm. "Emma, do you hear yourself? You tried to cut my family out of the most important day of my life, and now you want me to apologize?" "Yes," she snapped, slamming the laptop shut. "Because if you don't, then what's the point of this marriage? We'll never work if you can't put me first." That was the moment something in me broke, not in despair, but in clarity. I realized Emma didn't want a partner. She wanted a puppet. She didn't want compromise. She wanted control. And no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. The weeks that followed were a test of endurance. Emma alternated between cold silence and heated confrontations. Some days she would act sweet, cooking dinner and laughing at my jokes, as if nothing had happened. The next day, she'd explode again, accusing me of being ungrateful or obsessed with my mother. Her unpredictability was exhausting. At work, I found myself staying later and later, not because I had to, but because the office was peaceful compared to the battlefield waiting at home. My coworkers noticed the bags under my eyes, the forced smiles. One even asked if I was okay. "I'm fine," I lied. But inside, I was unraveling. It wasn't just me who noticed. My mother called one evening, her voice tentative. "Sweetheart, are you happy?" she asked. The question hit me harder than I expected. My throat tightened, and for a moment I couldn't speak. Finally, I said, "I don't know anymore." She didn't push, but her silence told me everything. She already knew. Then came the night Emma finally cracked. It was a Saturday evening. We had been invited to dinner at one of her friends' houses. Halfway through the night, her friend jokingly mentioned how emotional my mother had been at the wedding. "It was sweet, honestly," the friend said. "Made me cry too." Emma's face turned scarlet. The moment we got home, she erupted. "Do you see what you did? People are still talking about her." It was supposed to be about me. I calmly set my keys on the counter. Emma, if you think your biggest problem is people remembering that my mother was proud of her son, then you have bigger issues than I can fix. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she had no response. The silence between us grew thicker after that. Meals were eaten in quiet. Nights were spent on opposite sides of the bed. Conversations, when they happened, were clipped and cold. And then, one morning, I woke up and realized something simple but powerful. I didn't feel guilty anymore. I didn't feel afraid of her anger or desperate to fix things. I just felt done. Emma could rage, gossip, demand apologies, or throw tantrums, but it didn't matter. She had already lost the one thing she couldn't control, my respect. That's where I am now, writing this update. To friends and family, Emma still parades our marriage as perfect. She posts smiling photos online, captions filled with cliches about soulmates and forever. But those who know us well can see through it. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the path is clear. This isn't a partnership, it's a power struggle. And I refuse to live my life shackled by someone else's insecurities. If Emma thought she won by excluding my mother, she was wrong. Because the real victory isn't in who attends a wedding. It's in who I choose to spend the rest of my life with. And right now, I'm starting to think that person isn't Emma. Final update. When the dust finally settled after the wedding fiasco, I thought things would be calmer. But I should have known better. My fiancé, or rather, my ex-fiancé, wasn't done trying to rewrite history. Let's rewind. The day she told me, "Your mother can't come to the wedding. She's too dramatic," I agreed outwardly. I stayed calm, nodded, and said, "Understood." But inside, something shifted. That wasn't just about my mom. That was about control. That was about her trying to dictate who mattered in my life. So, I called the wedding planner. I didn't cancel my mom's invite. I expanded the guest list. Quietly, strategically, and very deliberately. My fiancée thought she was in control, but what she didn't realize was that she had just opened the door for me to test the foundation of what we had built. Instead of my mother being disinvited, I made sure her entire family, aunts, uncles, cousins, even the estranged relatives she hated, were included. But not just that. I also extended invitations to people she'd tried to cut out of my life. My old friends, the coworkers she thought weren't on our level, and even my college roommate she despised for bringing out my immaturity. I wasn't sabotaging the wedding. I was peeling back the curtain. I wanted to see how she would react when faced with the truth. A marriage is not about cutting people out. It's about building bridges. The reaction came sooner than expected. The meltdown. 2 weeks before the wedding, she discovered the updated guest list. I'll never forget the look on her face when she stormed into our apartment, clutching the planner's binder like it was evidence in a trial. "What is this?" she shrieked. I played dumb. "What do you mean?" She threw the binder on the table, pages spilling everywhere. "You invited your mother, your loser friends, and people I specifically said I didn't want there." I kept my voice even. "This is our wedding, not a dictatorship. My mom deserves to be there. My friends deserve to be there. Marriage is about family, both sides. Or at least, it's supposed to be." Her face twisted. "You're sabotaging me. This is MY Day." That word. My. Not our. Not us. That was the final nail. I leaned back in my chair and said, "You just told me everything I needed to know. It's not about us, is it? It's about control. It's about you." She froze, stunned that I didn't back down. The wedding that never happened. By Friday, I called the lawyer. By Monday, the venue deposit was canceled under my name, since it was my account funding it. The dress? Non-refundable. The floral arrangements? Gone. The honeymoon tickets? Refunded back to me, since I was the one who booked them. When she found out, she showed up at my office. Security had to walk her out because she tried to cause a scene in front of my coworkers. She screamed that I was humiliating her, that I was throwing everything away. But the truth was, she had already thrown it away. When you disrespect someone's family, you disrespect them too. The aftermath. Weeks later, she tried to spin the story. To her friends, I was the guy who left her at the altar. She conveniently left out the part where she tried to exile my mother from my life. But here's the thing, people talk. Word got around. And eventually, people began asking her questions she couldn't answer. Her bridesmaids started distancing themselves. Her own cousins, who had been thrilled about the wedding, told her she was selfish for trying to exclude my mom. Even her parents, who had quietly supported her in the beginning, called me privately and admitted, "We don't agree with what she did. Your mother should have been there." Funny how silence speaks volumes. Closure. The night after what was supposed to be our wedding day, I took my mom out to dinner. Just the two of us. No drama. No screaming. Just peace. She raised her glass and said, "To new beginnings." And she was right. Since then, I've moved on. I won't pretend it didn't hurt. It did. I loved her once. I pictured a future with her. But looking back now, I see the signs I ignored. The cutting comments. The little manipulations. The way everything had to be on her terms. The guest list incident wasn't just about invitations. It was about respect. Or rather, the lack of it. The last encounter. Months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but emotionally. Like the arrogance had been drained out of her. She walked up to me, eyes glossy, and whispered, "I made a mistake." I nodded, not unkindly. "Yeah, you did." She tried to reach for my arm, but I stepped back. Not angrily, just firmly. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you give, and you never gave it. She started crying right there in the aisle. People stared. I didn't. I just turned and walked away. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't anger. It's peace. It's walking away with your head held high, knowing you stood your ground. Final thoughts. My fiancé once tried to convince me my mother didn't deserve a seat at my wedding. But in the end, it was my fiancé who lost her seat in my life. And honestly, I don't regret a thing.